Yes, sorry about being a bit late. Quite new to the way StreamYard works. But look, I've come on, and I wanted to come on because I want to share something with you that I think is life changing and transformational. And because of that, and I don't normally use this platform, but obviously I'm aware it's there, so I thought it'd be a good idea just to come on board and just to make you aware of this opportunity. Look, and also while I'm here, I want to also share something very personal a little bit later on as we have a discussion about me about this opportunity. And but with my experience of it, it sort of puts things in perspective, and I think that's a good idea to discuss. So look, I want to talk about change because my whole life has been about change. If anything, possibly about constant change, and that goes back for some time. Actually, probably right back to the early 1980s, and at that particular time, I was very competitive within my sport. And I want to come on to that because it really does relate to the story, because it's all to do with change and moving on in your life and how we accept change, because sometimes change can be really very, very difficult to do. And one of the biggest changes that I really wanted to talk about is the trade-off that we constantly make in between security and, if you like, doing something that we really feel passionate about. Because often as we sacrifice the thing that we feel passionate about for the thing that we think is going to bring security for us, and often we'll be in jobs or doing something that really doesn't mean a whole lot to us, but we find ourselves there because it gives us security. I want to talk to you about the experience of some of my friends, because some of my friends now are they're approaching they're either in retirement or they're approaching retirement. Some people I know have worked for the same business for 40 odd years, and they were committed to their employment. They worked hard, they saved hard, and they had the pension. But of course, given where they are now, because of the cost of living crisis, it's impacted everyone. So these people that were making all these decisions based on things that were happening 30 or 40 years ago, and then find themselves now 30, 40 years ago later, when they thought they were going to have some type of security in their life, that the cost of living crisis has gone and affected everything. And the things that they thought they were going to have has been removed from them. So taken away from that particular person is what they thought was going to be a very, very happy retirement. So the thing about it is this, and the point I wanted to make is this, is that we give up everything for the point of having what we think is going to be security. And when we think we've got it, and then all of a sudden it's just completely taken away from us, from things in which we have no control of. And the question I asked myself many, many years ago was that, did I want to be stuck in something in which really didn't give me a sense of purpose, or didn't mean that much to me? And I just in that position where we feel as if we're existing and we're not living. We're going through the motions, perhaps we live for the weekend. I mean, other of us may feel as if we're doing very well. That way, we've got a great lifestyle, but it still doesn't ask you or stop you from asking those particular three words when you ask yourself, is this what my life is about? Is this going to be what my future holds for me? And as we're making those decisions, 30 years down the road, your sense of control can be gone, because the government can make decisions that completely throw everything in which you've planned for to come completely out the window. So the future that you thought you want to have is taken away from you. So the question is the sacrifice, if you're going to trade your freedom, your joy in life, the thing that really moves you forward, makes you want to get up in the morning, makes you want to sing and feel happy about life, if they're the things that you're willing to sacrifice, but then also knowing, with the added bit of information, that later on, that thing that you thought you were sacrificing because you thought you wanted this payoff 30 or 40 years down the road, and then that doesn't come to you. So the question is whether that sacrifice is really worth it. So what I wanted to do was tell you a bit about my journey, because I've had that many changes in my life, from a sporting background, from being in business, from working with different people, making different decisions. But one thing that has been permanent in my life all the time is the ability that if there was something in which I was experiencing no joy from, then I was prepared to move on, and sacrifice that, and create a new way of life for myself. And I thought that was really, really very important for me. Okay, so I think when we deny ourselves that calling, when we ask ourselves, is this it? And we know we've got something, an aching desire within us. There's things that we want to do. We can feel it within us, but for some reason we suppress it. We don't allow it to come alive. But yet somehow we know there's a better version of me somewhere else, doing something else. And I often think to myself, you know, while you're young enough and you've got that decision, because I'm not saying to you it's easy, because I know sometimes I've made decisions and the challenges have been really, really hard, but the payoff has been absolutely fantastic. And I don't mean just in monetary aspects, because I am a great believer that if you really believe in what you're doing and you're committed to it, you have the desire, the dedication, and the discipline, you will be successful. As long if you feel really passionate about it and you want to move it forward, you will be successful, and those rewards will come as long as you have the values that says, well, do you know what, I'm doing this, but I want to share my experience. And not only do I want to share my experience, I want to help move people on. And I think if you've got your values right there, if you're saying to yourself, well, what I want to do is help somebody, take them from where they are to where they could be, and you're looking at it from that perspective, then I think you will be successful. But the thought I want to sort of leave you with is this: what horrible thoughts it would be is that knowing that you had opportunity that come to you, and you'd ignored it. You had this voice, that was this inner voice that was calling you, that said to you, really, you could do with change. And really, it's your radar, it's your internal radar being set up. Something's telling you, some type of divine presence, it's telling you that it's time for you to move on. But we suppress it. We suppress it and we stay there because we think the sacrifice in 30 or 40 years' time, 20 years' time, will be worth it. But I'm saying to you, that can't be guaranteed. And what a horrible position to be in would be to be lying on your deathbed, thinking about all the opportunities that you've had, and suddenly realizing the opportunities to change anything has gone. Well, I want to share something with you today about the times I've had to make changes in my life, and big changes. And that's what I want to talk to you about now. Today is a day of celebration for me. It's 3rd of April. But I want to talk about the 3rd of April, 40 years ago. Because on the 3rd of April, 40 years ago, in 1983, I won the British kickboxing title. Now, I want to tell you about that journey, because it really is. It's important, and it relates greatly to the ability to want to change in your life, and the changes and making the sacrifices to make the changes. So if I explore that with you, you can see where I'm coming from. Yeah, I'm proud. I'm glad I've told you about that. But I wanted you to realize that every time I stepped into the ring and I had 34 fights, I was scared. Every time I stepped into that ring, I was scared. But what kept me motivated every time was that it was more scary thinking to myself that have I had this opportunity of this life, and the fact that you're here now, when you think about it, is absolutely incredible. You are incredible, just the fact that you're here now. We all are. How lucky we are to have this opportunity. So here we are, and it struck me, even at the age of 18, 19, that if I was to deny myself or not take an opportunity, not grasp an opportunity, and go through this motion of sacrificing what could be to fight for security, that there was an inevitability in the end that I wouldn't feel fulfilled. I would have sacrificed my freedom, my fulfillment, any meaning that I could find within this life would have been completely sacrificed for what I thought would be security for something that might happen 30 to 40 years in the future. And the point I'm making is that there's no guarantee for that at all. So back in the 1980s, Liverpool didn't look anything like what it does do now. It was completely different. And there were restaurants, pubs and things like that, but there wasn't any major restaurants. The food was quite bland. The Albert Dock wasn't there. None of the shopping centres were really there. There was only the immediacy within the centre, and the likes of the Little Woods, if you remember that, Timothy White's. That's it, but there wasn't anything great. And travelling from Liverpool Lime Street to London Euston on first, second, and third class, and we could only ever thought third class, took us 6.5 hours on these like old bench-like seats that would be sitting there. And they were really racketing, shaking our body as we go 6.5 hours down. And we would be at that train station, Liverpool Lime Street, for about 5:30, 10 to 6, with a view to get down and to go and compete in London. After all, that's what we were doing. And after 6.5 hours, we're getting there about midday, 12:30, something like that. We'd be jumping on the underground, looking for the place that we had to go where we would be competing. And we'd suddenly come up, and all of a sudden, we would see everybody. The restaurants would be full. The bars were full. There weren't gym bars then. There were wine bars. They were the big things in the early 80s. Wine bars everywhere. But the point being that there were people queuing up, and they would only be a few years older than me. But they would have drinks, the food on the table. They were laughing. They were loud. They were joking. And I was looking at that. And I was wondering, what the hell? How the hell could they afford to do that? And I couldn't. And then you suddenly realise it was my first understanding of what we call the North-South divide. And it was just a completely different way of life. And I suppose I was really, really shocked about it. I couldn't get over it. I remember thinking to myself that I'd like to live like that. I'd like to be able to live like that. And why couldn't I? And this would be about 1980. And I made the decision there and then. And the decision I made was I wanted to commit to something so I could become really good at something. Because I knew if I could become good at something, that I'd have a chance of making a living. That I was prepared to be disciplined, to be determined, to dedicate myself to something so I could try and make a future for myself. And that's where the kickboxing come into it. Because I really made a decision there and then that I needed to really focus on this to become good. And so I could become good at something, hopefully create a living for myself, which was the important thing for me at that point in time. And I got to say, every time I stepped in the ring, I was always scared. But the thing that kept me motivated, as though I was scared climbing into the ring, the thing that kept me motivated more than ever was the thought of not making any type of mark in this life, having this opportunity at this life, and just going through the motions. You know, the type of thing, you wake up in the morning, clean your teeth, have a cup of coffee, a bit of breakfast, go to work, come home, watch a bit of TV, play on the phone as you would do now, and go to bed. And then you rinse and repeat, and you do the same thing. I thought I didn't want to live my life like that. It had to have meaning for me. So I made this decision to commit. I was determined to commit, to be good at something. And I started training harder. I was committing to the training, but above all else, I wanted to improve. And the way I learned to improve was this, is that you might learn something new, but I was prepared to take it apart, put it back together, and try and improve upon what I've been taught to see if I can make it work better for me. And I kept doing this, and sometimes the improvements were very, very small, but even though they were small, they had big, big impact. And that was the point. That was the point, because I was looking for that change. I was looking for that ability to improve. And sometimes you can go through this for months on end and you hit a plateau. And although you hit this plateau, you just can't break through. You seem to be in the same place, and there doesn't seem to be any feeling of improvement in your delivery. But the point of it is that you're determined, you're dedicated, you've made the commitment to want to improve. So I kept doing it. And finally, I had this breakthrough moment. And all of a sudden, for about 12 to 18 months, I progressed so fast. I amazed myself at what I was then able to do. And sometimes, although they were only slight changes, as I said, the improvements were absolutely massive. But it was having that ability and patience to unpack what you were learned, put it back together, and try and improve upon it. And that was a very big learning lesson from me, because I found enjoyment from doing that. I found enjoyment in progress. And for me, joy equals progress, because if you can find progress in your life, which is what my change has always been about, it's about finding that progress in your life that I think really is very, very important, because it gives you joy. There's an intrinsic feeling of joy that comes from performing something so well that people are often drawn into your orbit of what it is that you're doing, because they can see what you're doing. You're making the complex look very, very simple. So people are drawn in. And it gave me this great degree of confidence in what I was doing. So I remember we're going down to a tournament, and seeing this lad in December 82. Defend his British title, like I remember saying to my brother. And at that point in time, none of us within our group of clubs had won the title. I can remember saying to him, I can win that guy. And I know, I think you call them out now, but then it was just a case of making the challenge. I made the challenge, and I went for it. Now, normally I was never that confident. And but what gave me the confidence is the practice in what I was doing, the practice in taking the routine, taking it apart, putting back together, feeling joy in the improvements in me, not what somebody said about me, but the joy in me, feeling as if I'd improved in what I was doing. And that gave me a great deal of confidence. As it was 40 years ago today, I won that fight. But I'm not talking to you about really kickboxing. What I'm talking to you about is change. Because at the age of 25, which was relatively young, I won that title at 19. But at the age of 25, I had my last fight in Miami. And I realized at that point in time that my love for the sport, my desire had gone, and perhaps it was time for me to move on. And I knew stepping into the ring at that level, if I persisted about it, I was only going to get hit and damaged. And the joy I'd experienced in it, I'd sort of petered out, and I'd lost that competitive edge. But it had given me so much, and I decided then to make a change in my life, and I made a dramatic change. I went back to education, spent a couple of years in pharma, did a HND in business, and then ended up with a job in London for a couple of years, and in fact, now 3 years. And the first 2 years, I sort of enjoyed the work I was doing there because it was different. I was earning good money. But after a while, I realized that it was no longer giving me whatever it is, that point of fulfillment, the feeling that I was serving a higher purpose, not to somebody else, but for me. And that feeling had dissipated. Or as the French would say, a raison d'etre, raison d'etre. My French is absolutely awful, but it means your reason for being. And mine had, my reason for being, I realized, was dying the longer I persisted within the job. So I gave up that. I gave up that job, well-paid job, but I gave it up, and I was determined to move on. Come back up north, and I remember going through, so I dropped the sport, educated, had this good job, and my parents started having a go at me, although I was approaching 30, saying, what are you doing? Couldn't quite understand it, and so I persisted, and I signed on to train to become a school teacher. Got myself a Bachelor of Education. I qualified to be a teacher. I was offered the job, and I realised after spending 2 years training to be a teacher that I didn't really want to do it. But it doesn't matter what you do. If you're learning something, there's something from that you will take from it in later life, and you'll be able to put to use. So nothing is wasted. Nothing that you do will ever be wasted. And I learned a lot from, there was an American learning theorist called David Kolb, and I learned so much from him about experiential learning. And it was more learning about doing after the sport that really made sense to me, that the way we move our body, we can learn far more from that than perhaps we can read in the book. Take, for instance, when you learn to walk, nobody came up to you with an explanation sheet or a diagram. You just had to stand up and to do it. Your gait, your pace, your balance, all these things. It wasn't your mind, it was your body instructing the mind, telling the body that, to improve, you need to adjust this way. And you were making those adjustments on the move automatically because your body realized it was learning by doing. So that really registered with me, and wasn't happy with teaching. So I did, rather than take a full-time job, I did some supply teaching. And as I was supply teaching in the daytime, in the evening, I studied to become an accountant. Spent a further 2 years doing that, passed, and I put a little advert in the paper. Nothing big, very, very small advert. Not expecting much, and I was just saying, you're a qualified accountant. If you're paying too much tax, let me know. We'll have a little chat and I'll see if I can save you money. If I can't, then we'll just shake hands. That kind of approach. And so I did that, and I got one reply. But this reply I got was from a guy who not only dealt in property, he was the manager of Jimmy White's snooker player, and I had a great relationship with this fella over a number of years, and he was very good to me. And what I felt like at that moment of time, I was learning that much of him to do with property. I felt loads of doors of opportunities, like they were opening up years ago. They say that you're not necessarily a lucky person, you just create lucky opportunities. And because I kept pushing forward and I was looking for an improvement in everything that I did, the way I went about what I was doing, that these opportunities were being created. Some people call it serendipity, but it was just like the door of opportunity, and that created a new door for me. And I ended up being involved in property, with the property business for over 25 years, selling that property business in 2018. All the time, the reason that I'm explaining all this to you is that I want you to understand the changes that I was prepared and the challenges that I had to get over a number of years, that it didn't just fall on a plate, that I had to commit. I had to be dedicated, determined, and disciplined with myself. But the greatest learning thing from it all was the ability, A, to commit to it, to have desire, dedication, determination, yeah, but also be prepared to take something apart and put it back together again. So I could make that improvement, because I knew that no, it didn't matter what I was learning, if I could do that, that I would improve and I would get better. How did I know? What I knew from the sport, and I knew that all the choices I was making, that sometimes, although I was challenged, just like I was in my sport, and I was challenged to try and make it a success with everything that I was doing, I knew if I kept at it, kept chewing at the bit, that eventually the rewards that I was looking for would be there. And that's exactly what I did. I kept chomping at the bit, and I kept working hard. And I had a successful business for 25 years because I wasn't prepared to trade off my sense of security for the feeling that whatever I was doing was intrinsically rewarding. And that's what the point what I wanted to share, because I would like you to experience and understand what I went through, that perhaps could save you the 30 or 40 years it took me to realize what it was that was really pushing me forward in life. After I sold my business in 2018, I put a little advert in the Facebook, and I said something to the effect that I was looking forward to use my sporting background and my business experience to help others. I was looking for ideas, and a company contacted me from the Netherlands, Amsterdam, and called Mind 5. And I thought what they were doing was absolutely brilliant. And they took the concept of experiential learning that I understood, hadn't studied to be a teacher. And they were, one of the parts of their course or their program was a fellow called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, Hungarian psychologist, who created something known as the flow state. Now, the flow state is all about doing something that you find both enjoyable, very rewarding. You become so focused in it, you often lose track of time, hunger, even thirst, because you're just stuck in that moment in time. Everything else just loses meaning for you because you're enjoying what you're doing that much. And because you're enjoying it, that's the progress that you want to make it. And no one can take this away from you, because it's something that you find of intrinsic value to you. As soon as I heard about this guy, I understood it, because I'd experienced it in the ring and I'd experienced it in business. And it's because of that's the reason why I wanted to get on here today and other platforms the way I had, and explain to you that finding flow in your life can be a real transformational period for you, to help you thrive, to help you excel in your life, because you're taking the steps for constant improvement. Now, we live such sedentary lives now here in 2023, and we have done the last few years stuck in front of our computers, and somehow we've forgotten about what moving our body can do for us, and the learning it takes when we do, the learning it brings us by moving our body, because we're living such sedentary lives. And of course, we're not dealing with stress. And we hear people so much mental illness now because we're not dealing with our stress. Why are we not? Because we're not moving our bodies. What happens when we're under stress? The blood circulates to your heart and your lungs more and less blood to your brain. That's why you can't calculate or rationalize when you're on the move and trying to do things, or you're under constant pressure. So you often find people, when they're put under pressure, collapse because they're not used to it. However, in flow, you do become used to it. You're trained to make decisions under pressure, but the pressure isn't as great because you enjoy what you're doing, and you become equal to it because you become so practiced. You take what you do from the practice arena to the performance arena, and in between there is the constant improvement in what you're doing. I've got some very simple exercises. They're not physically demanding, but they do make you think. They consist of non-sequitur or non-sequence movements, uh, non-simultaneous of all limbs, all together, all at the same time. And there's a reason why we do that, because it takes quite a bit of coordination. And at first, when you start, you're going to appear and feel a little bit clunky within your life as you try to perform it. But the better you're getting, you're learning the process of trying to improve. A process of sedentary lifestyles is taking us or moving us away from. And yet we need to move the body. It's so important. We lose mobility, we forget how to use our limbs. And let's face it, I bet many of you have been in a situation where you've tried to recall something. And as you try to recall it, you're either pacing or you can't recall a number, but then your fingers start to work and that number comes to you just like that, because it came through moving your body. So look, I'm not talking about anything demanding, but what I am talking about is this. I've got a challenge on. It's the Learn to Peak Challenge, my first steps to flow, or your first steps to flow. And what I'm saying to you is this: I'm going to put a link in the bottom of here. If you would like to improve, if you'd like to find the passion in your life that can be transformational, so you can begin to find joy, the joy that's already within you now. And all I'm doing is giving you a key to unlock that so you can find your true potential. If that's of interest to you, and I can tell you now, it's given me, when I've used flow in my life, I've experienced intrinsic joy, a lot of confidence in what I do, and a lot of belief, and the doors have opened for me. But when I've made decisions from ego and I've dropped the flow within my life, I haven't made the best decisions. As I look back now and I can think about the decision making over the years, I can honestly say that when I was in flow, it really improved things for me. And that's exactly what I want to give to you. So within the comment section at the bottom, I'll put a link to a Facebook group. Join that group. It's free. It's free to join, and you can join me for 3 hours, 1 hour a day, starting from the 26th of April at 7 p.m., 1 hour a day. And it's going to be completely free. And I will tell you how to find that joy. I'll show you what you need to do, how to find that joy, how to unlock that sense of purpose in you, and it become transformational, so you become a more confident person. And it doesn't require massive change. That's the thing. I'm not talking about totally disrupting your life here. No, that's not the case. That's one of the things I've learned from it. This can be done without massive change, but the small change that you do make can have massive impact, and you can begin to feel that joy in your life. Joyce Grenfell, I don't know if you remember, 1950s black and white actress, had a marvelous saying, and she would say, "There's no such thing as the pursuit of happiness, but there is the discovery of joy." And that is to be in flow. It is a joyful experience because it's the value you intrinsically feel, not because of somebody else. You don't need somebody else to say, "Oh, wasn't that good?" or whatever. It'll probably happen because somebody will be amazed at what you've done. And here's the thing. They reckon to become masterly in everything, you need to dedicate 100 hours. 100 hours and you can become masterly in anything. And to put that in perspective for you, That's merely 18 minutes, 18 minutes per day for 1 year for you to become mastery in a particular subject so you can feel flow in your life. Once you start to walk through that door, the door of opportunity will begin to open as long as you make that commitment to it. So I'll put that link in there for you. Love to see you. If you drop your email to me on Messenger through Facebook, I will also send you a free ebook, First Steps to Flow. So look, this is a fantastic opportunity. I hope you take it up. It's a chance for you to let go of all your fears. And let's face it, everything that's getting thrown at you from the media at this moment in time, you've got enough to be fearful about. But look, you can't control none of that. But you can control what happens to you internally and your sense of happiness, fulfillment, and the joy that you experience in your life. You can control that. And this program will help you find that joy that you've been searching, that sense of fulfillment for you. So I'll stick it in a link at the bottom. Hope to hear from you. Join up, send me your email, and I'll send that free ebook to you. Thank you very much.